There are places on Earth where a single mistake is not paid for with fear, but with fire. The ground burns, the air suffocates, and heat kills without warning. Living here should be impossible. And yet, some communities have lived this way for generations. Today, you will discover how these fire-dominated territories work, the dangers hidden beneath their surface, and how 7 tribes have learned to stay alive in environments where there is almost no room for error. Before we continue, subscribe to CronoPlanet to keep exploring the most extreme corners of the planet with us. And stay until the end, because each of these territories reveals a different way of coexisting with fire, all pointing toward the same uncomfortable truth, revealed step by step. To understand what you are about to see, we first need to understand why these territories exceed the usual limits of the human body. Look closely. Fire does not always appear in the same form. Sometimes it emerges through active volcanoes. The ground looks still, yet releases heat and invisible gases without warning. Other times, the land deceives. You walk forward, and beneath your feet are zones capable of burning skin in seconds. There are regions covered in ash that you breathe in without even noticing, and places where the danger is not flames, but ground that never truly cools. None of this is stable. The landscape shifts. The risk moves. There is no margin for correction here. One miscalculated step is enough. Faced with an environment like this, only one question remains. How do you know when to move forward and when to stop if the danger is not always visible? That is the starting point of this exploration. 1. Afar, Ethiopia, the inferno that never cools. In northeastern Ethiopia, there is a territory where the land offers no rest. A place where heat does not depend on the midday sun, because the ground itself releases energy day and night. This is the Danakil Depression, one of the hottest and most volcanic regions on Earth. Here, the landscape is never stable. Open fissures release toxic gases. Geothermal fields raise ground temperatures to levels capable of burning skin in seconds. And active volcanoes like Erta maintain visible lava lakes, a constant reminder that this land never truly cools. It is in this environment that the Afar people live, a nomadic community accustomed to moving through a territory where staying too long in one place can be lethal. There are no safe paths. The geography changes with heat, volcanic activity, and the constant release of invisible gases. Danger is not always visible. The air may contain sulfur dioxide that burns the lungs. The ground may appear solid, yet hide extreme temperatures just beneath the surface. And slight changes in the color of the soil can signal that an area is heating up again. For this reason, the Afar move along seasonal routes adapted to the behavior of the land. They know when an area becomes uninhabitable and when it can be crossed safely. Their most important tool is not strength or endurance, but the constant reading of their environment. They interpret signs others would overlook. The smell of the air as gases increase, ground vibrations before a geothermal shift, subtle color changes that announce rising heat beneath the surface. For anyone who did not grow up here, these signals would come too late. The body reacts before the mind understands what is happening. One misstep leaves no room for correction. Their physical rhythm is slow and deliberate. In a place where heat is constant, moving quickly means exhausting yourself too soon. Every movement is calculated to conserve energy and water, the scarcest resource in this territory. Water management is extreme. There are no stable rivers or permanent sources. Water is carried, rationed, and shared with precision, because a single miscalculation can mean failing to survive the next stretch of the journey. The Afar do not form large permanent settlements. They organize into small groups, able to move quickly when the terrain begins to turn dangerous. In a landscape like this, a large community would be slow, exposed, and vulnerable. For centuries, this way of life has allowed them to remain alive in one of the most hostile environments on Earth. But today, danger no longer comes only from heat and fire. Resource exploitation, armed conflicts, and the impact of climate change are altering traditional routes and shrinking the margins of survival. Territories that could once be crossed during certain times of the year are now becoming uninhabitable for increasingly long periods. In the Danakil Depression, life does not dominate fire. It adapts to it, and faced with a landscape like this, the question is direct. Could you walk through a place where the ground itself can end your life without warning? In Danakil, fire rises from the earth and shapes every human decision. Here, survival means knowing when to retreat before heat decides for you. But not all peoples who live alongside fire do so in open deserts. There are places where danger does not spread silently, but rises in the form of a mountain, capable of awakening at any moment. If what you have seen so far already seems extreme, what comes next completely changes the setting. The focus now shifts to Indonesia, to a territory where the landscape imposes its own rules. A place where the threat does not erupt, it remains. Bali Aga, Indonesia, living beneath active volcanoes. On the island of Bali, there is a landscape where danger does not spread beneath your feet. It rises before your eyes and rules the horizon. Feel the air grow heavier. The silence presses down. The mountain's presence shapes everything. Here, fire takes the form of a mountain. The Bali Aga are traditional communities who live in regions defined by active volcanoes, including Mount Agung, one of Indonesia's most feared. This is not a volcano of the past. It has erupted in recent times and remains a real threat to those living around it. Unlike other extreme territories, the danger here is not constant. It is cyclical. For long stretches, the land seems calm. Fields are cultivated again. Villages are rebuilt. Daily life returns under the volcano's shadow. Until the mountain wakes, eruptions send ash that blankets roofs, crops, and roads. The air turns unbreathable. Visibility vanishes, and within hours, entire communities must leave their homes, following evacuation routes they know by heart. For the Bali Aga, evacuation is not running away. It is part of the cycle. They know when to leave and, just as importantly, when to return. After each eruption, ash restores fertility to the soil, but it also forces a fresh start. Homes are rebuilt, temples are cleaned, fields are reorganized. The entire community takes part in a process that is not lived as an endless tragedy, but as another test within an ancient relationship with the volcano. Their survival depends on reading natural signals with precision. Changes in volcanic behavior, shifts in the wind, deep sounds, subtle vibrations, or disturbances in the environment can serve as early warnings. They do not rely only on modern technology. They rely on a collective memory passed down through generations. Community organization is essential. No one decides alone. Evacuations, returns, and rebuilding happen in coordination. Because in a place like this, one person's mistake can endanger everyone. Living beneath active volcanoes has shaped a worldview where risk is not denied and not fought. It is accepted. The Bali Aga do not live despite the volcano. They live by interpreting it, adjusting their lives to its cycles, knowing that absolute stability does not exist where fire can wake at any moment. And you, could you live knowing your home might become uninhabitable at any time? Here, the volcano is not only a threat, it is also a cultural, spiritual, and social reference that defines when to move forward and when to stop. In Bali, fire announces itself from above and gives you time to react. The threat is visible, cyclical, and, in a way, predictable to those who have learned how to read it. But not all peoples living under fire's rule have the advantage of distance. There are places where heat does not rise as a mountain. It becomes trapped in the ground, in the stone, and in the air, day after day, without relief. Now we enter a territory where heat offers no mercy. 3. Turkana, Kenya, the heat that never lets up. In northern Kenya, there is a territory where danger does not arrive as an explosion or a sudden disaster. Here, the enemy is constant. It doesn't roar, it doesn't warn you, and it simply wears you down. The Lake Turkana region stretches across ancient volcanic fields that have stained the earth black. These soils, formed by solidified lava and basalt rock, absorb the sun's heat during the day and release it slowly through the night. The result is an environment where temperature offers almost no relief. This is where the Turkana live, a pastoral people who have learned to survive under permanent thermal exposure. Here, the sun doesn't mark the most dangerous moment of the day. It marks the entire day. The ground burns beneath your feet, the air grows heavy, shade is scarce and always shifting. And water, the most basic resource for life, appears only intermittently, always in limited amounts. Water scarcity shapes every decision. There are no stable rivers and no reliable sources. Wells run dry, routes change, and movement is planned with a precision that leaves no room for mistakes. The Turkana do not move fast. Not because they cannot, but because they must not. In a place like this, speeding up means losing fluids, energy, and the ability to respond. So life is organized around a slow, deliberate rhythm, one that allows them to endure long days under the sun without collapsing. Hydration is managed with extreme care. Every sip matters. The body learns to conserve liquid, to endure thirst for extended periods, and to recognize limits before crossing them. Here, physiological resilience is not exceptional. It is an everyday necessity. Movement is never improvised. They seek natural shelters, slight rises in the terrain, minimal shade cast by rocks or sparse vegetation. They travel at specific times of day, avoiding the hours when heat makes the environment almost uninhabitable. And the livestock, essential to survival, sets the rhythm as well. Animals sense before humans when an area becomes unviable. Following them is not tradition, it is strategy. Unlike other extreme territories, there is no single decisive moment separating life from death. The danger doesn't erupt, it accumulates. Imagine moving forward under a sun that never eases. Each day wears the body down a little more. Each mistake in measuring water shrinks the margin. and each miscalculated journey is paid for with exhaustion, illness, or the need to abandon the land. For generations, the Turkana have endured in one of the harshest environments on the African continent. But today, the balance is increasingly fragile. Rising temperatures, accelerating desertification, and conflicts over resources reduce movement options and strain a way of life already pushed to the limit. Areas that once offered temporary refuge are now becoming unusable for much of the year. In Turkana, survival doesn't mean defeating the heat. It means learning not to confront it. Because here, the real danger doesn't arrive all at once. It arrives slowly, and it never lets up. In Turkana, fire doesn't fall from the sky, and it doesn't burst from the ground as lava. It remains trapped in the soil, in the air, and in the body, wearing everything down day after day. But not all peoples living with heat do so in open landscapes. There are places where fire isn't only felt in the body, it becomes part of how people inhabit the world and part of every daily decision. Keep watching, because now we enter a place where heat offers no mercy, where the sun doesn't punish from time to time, it punishes always. A territory where the body stops being a shelter and becomes the first frontier between continuing or not. 4. Masai, the Rift Valley, the ground that splits open. Walk through this place for a moment. Nothing seems to burn in front of you. And yet the danger is there. It doesn't fall from the sky, and it doesn't rise as lava. It opens beneath your feet. You move across ground that looks stable, but it creaks, cracks, and shifts without warning. The earth holds heat. The air doesn't announce it. You feel it only when you're already standing on top of it. The Great Rift Valley cuts through East Africa like a wound that never fully closes. The Earth's crust is slowly pulling apart, creating fissures, faults, and zones where heat rises from below with no clear signal. Here, the landscape doesn't break all at once. It drifts, and every step demands absolute attention. This is the territory of the Maasai, a pastoral people whose survival depends on moving across land that is never completely stable. At first glance, the plains look open and easy to cross, but beneath the surface lie heat pockets, geothermal zones, and soils that can reach dangerous temperatures without obvious signs. A place that was safe yesterday can become uninhabitable after the smallest change underground. Fire here is not seen, it is felt. The Maasai have learned to live with this invisible risk by making decisions based on a precise reading of their surroundings. They watch for fresh cracks in the ground, shifts in vegetation, changes in animal behavior, and subtle differences in the Earth's temperature. To them, every detail is a warning. Their mobility is not a choice, it is necessity. Livestock is not only food and wealth, it is also a natural sensor. Cattle instinctively avoid ground that is too hot or unstable. Following them is not tradition, it is survival. When an area starts to turn dangerous, camps move, not as an escape, but as anticipation. Staying too long in the wrong place can mean losing animals, resources, or life itself. Settlements are lightweight, designed to be taken down and rebuilt quickly. On land that can split open, permanence becomes a disadvantage. Mobility, instead, becomes a form of intelligence. For generations, this knowledge has allowed the Maasai to herd in one of the most geologically active regions on the planet. But today, that balance is becoming increasingly fragile. Pressure on land, shrinking traditional routes, and the spread of fixed infrastructure limit movement. Areas that could once be avoided now must be crossed. And the margin for error is narrowing. In the Rift Valley, fire doesn't wipe out entire villages in an instant. It makes no sound, it gives no warning, it simply waits. Here, survival isn't about confronting fire, it's about recognizing it while it's still invisible. Because on this ground that splits open, the greatest danger isn't what you can see. It's what you ignore. And would you know how to spot a threat before it reveals itself? There are peoples who don't just live alongside extreme heat. They incorporate it into the body, into the skin, into everyday gestures. And if you've made it this far, we've already reached the halfway point of this journey. Moving forward means you're already part of this channel. If you haven't yet, subscribe and get ready. What comes next goes even further. We are heading into a territory where the sun gives no relief, where fire doesn't appear from time to time, it remains. And living doesn't mean escaping the heat, but learning to carry it with you. 5. Himba, Namibia. The fire of the sun. In northwestern Namibia, there is a territory where danger does not rise from the ground and does not tower as a volcano. Here, fire falls from the sky. Kaoko land is an arid, blistering region where solar exposure is constant, and extreme temperatures offer no refuge. There is not enough shade. There is no humidity to ease the body, and heat doesn't arrive in peaks. It stays. This is where the Himba live, a semi-nomadic people whose survival depends on a direct, conscious relationship between the body and the environment. Here, adaptation is not about escaping heat. It is about living with it. The sun shapes every daily decision. Activities shift to the least punishing hours. Movement is measured. Rest becomes strategy. In a landscape where solar fire beats down without pause, the body is the first line of defense. One of their best-known adaptations is bodily protection. The mixture of animal fat and mineral pigments applied to the skin is not mere decoration and not an isolated aesthetic symbol. It functions as a barrier against the sun, reduces moisture loss, and shields the body from the air's extreme dryness. With little water available, managing heat becomes a priority. Every action is aimed at conserving energy, preventing overheating, and keeping the body in balance in a place where one mistake can mean exhaustion or collapse. Here, fire is not only the sun, it is also part of daily life. Domestic fire is used for cooking, gathering, and maintaining social bonds, but always with respect for an environment where a single, uncontrolled spark can worsen conditions that are already extreme. Fire does not add risk here. It is integrated. The relationship between body and territory is constant. The Himba do not reshape the landscape to make it livable. They reshape how they exist within it. For generations, this balance has allowed them to remain in one of the harshest regions of southern Africa. But today, that resilience faces new pressure. Prolonged droughts, rising temperatures, and external constraints are shrinking the margins of movement and putting at risk a way of life built for an already extreme environment, now even more unpredictable. In Himba territory, survival does not mean defeating the sun. It means knowing when to expose yourself and when to stop. Here, fire does not erase cities or split the earth open. It works slowly, day after day, on the skin, and it reminds us of an essential truth. When the environment offers no refuge, the body becomes the final boundary. In Himba territory, fire falls from the sky and is faced with the body itself. But there are peoples who do not merely endure it. They have learned to summon it. For them, fire is not something to avoid. It is something to control, to ration, And every time they do, there is a price. What you're about to see explains why. 6. Baga, Guinea. Fire as a dangerous tool. Along the coast of Guinea lies a territory where fire is neither an accident nor an occasional threat. Here, fire is a conscious decision. The Baga inhabit regions where seasonal fires have shaped the landscape for generations. Climate, vegetation, and dry cycles turn vast areas into flammable ground, where a single spark can spread rapidly if it isn't controlled in time. Unlike other peoples who avoid fire, the Baga have learned to live with it. Each year, fire is used to clear land, renew soils, and keep open spaces essential to community life. This is not an impulsive act. It is a calculated process, grounded in knowledge of winds, soil moisture, and the precise moment within the seasonal cycle. Smoke is a constant presence. It seeps into the air, blankets the horizon, and sets the rhythm of daily life. Breathing it is part of the environment. So is ignoring it. Here, fire does not destroy without purpose. It shapes. But that relationship demands absolute precision. A single mistake in controlling the flames can turn a useful burn into an uncontrolled wildfire, capable of wiping out fields, homes, and vital resources. That is why knowledge of fire is passed down with rigor. Knowing when to ignite it is just as important as knowing when to stop it. Natural cycles dictate the rules, and those who fail to respect them put the entire community at risk. The danger is not denied, it is accepted. Living here means understanding that fire can be both ally and enemy at the same time. There is no romance in this reality, only a deep awareness that certain tools, when mastered, allow survival, and when underestimated, destroy everything in their path. For generations, this relationship has sustained the Baga in a changing environment. But today, that balance is increasingly fragile. Pressure on the land, climate shifts, and the disruption of traditional cycles are narrowing the margin of control. Fires that were once manageable are becoming unpredictable, and fire, which structured life for centuries, is beginning to behave differently. In Baga territory, fire is not a symbol or a metaphor. It is a real tool, dangerous, indispensable. Here, we understand something essential. Fire does not only destroy cultures, it also builds them. And here an uncomfortable question emerges. What happens when the very thing that allowed you to live begins to turn unpredictable? So far, we have seen fire as threat, erosion, punishment, and tool. We have seen peoples who avoid it, who endure it, and who control it with extreme precision. But we have not yet reached the limit. There is a way of living with fire that goes beyond using it or resisting it. One in which fire is not just a resource, but the exact line between safety and death. Everything we have seen leads us to the most extreme community in this exploration. One that lives in an environment where, without fire, there is no refuge at all. The jungle of Papua closes in around us, a dense enclosed territory where danger is not always seen, it is felt. 7. Korowai, Papua, Indonesia. When fire doesn't burn, it protects. In the rainforest of southeastern Papua, danger does not come from extreme heat or active volcanoes. Here, the threat is constant, silent, and difficult to detect. The jungle is dense, humid, and closed in. Visibility is minimal. Disease spreads easily. Animals move unseen. And the ground, tangled with roots, mud, and decomposing matter, never offers a truly stable base. This is where the Korowai live, a people whose survival depends on a radical choice not to inhabit the jungle, but to rise above it. Their homes are not built at ground level. They are raised dozens of meters high, on giant trees, forming suspended houses that seem to defy logic itself. Up there, the environment changes. Humidity drops. Animals are kept at a distance, and the territory can be watched before danger arrives. But even high in the trees, the jungle grants no mercy. Here, fire is essential, not as a symbol, not as a ritual, as a barrier to survival. Fires are kept burning to drive away insects, reduce humidity, and carve out a livable space in an environment that never truly sleeps. Smoke becomes an invisible shield. Without it, the house stops being a refuge and becomes a trap, suspended in the middle of the forest. Fire also organizes life. It defines the center of the home. It marks moments of rest, gathering, and nighttime protection. In a place where darkness swallows everything, firelight draws a clear line between safety and vulnerability. Unlike peoples who try to dominate their environment, the Korowai do not remake the jungle. They interpret it, they choose specific trees, they manage fire with extreme precision. They hold a fragile balance between protection and risk, because here, a single mishandled spark can be as lethal as the threats that fire keeps away. Fire does not erase the danger, it contains it. For generations, this relationship has allowed the Korowai to survive in one of the most hostile and complex environments on Earth. But today, that balance is increasingly fragile. External pressure, loss of territory, and forced contact with unfamiliar ways of life threaten a knowledge built slowly, through observation, memory, and absolute adaptation. In Papua's jungle, fire does not erase cities or split the ground open. Here, fire saves. And when you reach this point, a revelation becomes impossible to ignore. Fire is not only a natural enemy, it is not only destruction, heat, or threat. In the hands of those who can read their environment, fire becomes shelter, becomes boundary, becomes the exact difference between existing and disappearing. And then one question is hard to escape. Could you live knowing your safety depends on keeping lit the very thing that could also destroy you? After traveling through territories where fire shapes every decision, a clear pattern emerges. None of these peoples try to dominate it, defeat it, or challenge it. They do something different. They read it, respect it, and adapt to it. Sometimes fire forces movement, other times it determines when to return. In some places, it wears the body down. In others, it organizes life or protects from greater dangers. But it always fulfills the same function. It sets the limits. These cultures do not survive because they are stronger or because they possess advanced technology. They survive because they listen to the ground when it heats up, to the air when it changes, to the body when it warns. And this does not belong to the past. For centuries, our civilization has built safety by distancing itself from fire, trusting systems that promise control. But that control is fragile. Today, heat is returning, and the modern body is beginning to show its limits. In the face of this, the lesson is clear. Survival does not depend on dominating the environment, but on understanding it. The question no longer speaks about them, it speaks about us. When fire once again marks the limits of the planet, are we prepared to live in a world like this? Thank you for making it this far. If you watched the documentary to the end, let us know by leaving the keyword of this episode in the comments: fire. This way, we'll know you are part of this community that enjoys exploring the planet's real limits. After seeing these places, what matters most remains. Which territory impacted you the most? Where did you never imagine it would be possible to live? Each perspective adds something different to this journey. This community is built from the questions the world leaves us. If this documentary made you look at the planet with different eyes, and you want to keep exploring cultures and landscapes that rarely appear on maps, you can subscribe to CronoPlanet so you don't miss the next stories we are preparing. Because Earth still holds places that cannot be dominated, only understood. See you in the next story.